You for joining us. And you were just in the room with Ambassador Taylor. You serve on both the House Intel and the Judiciary Committee. What do you want to find out? What did you want to find out from Taylor going into this? And are those questions being answered?
Good afternoon, Brianna. We are on a brief lunch break. So first, just the fact that the ambassador is here, we are grateful for. You know, they have all been ordered not to show up by the State Department and the White House. You have an ambassador who has served the United States for 50 years. He went to West Point. He served in the 101st Airborne Division, went to Vietnam, worked at the State Department, worked in the Senate, worked at NATO. This is a career public servant. He is cooperating right now and providing useful information. But just going to those text messages, they are corroborated by what Mick Mulvaney said, which is that indeed there is a quid pro quo going on. So we are just seeking to see if there are any arrows that point in any other direction beyond the fact that this was a shakedown scheme ordered by the president, carried out by Rudy Giuliani in this shadow diplomacy track.
What has he told you?
I can't go into that yet, and we typically respect the witnesses and we'll let them testify all day, and the chairman will give guidance as to what we can put out. But we also, right now in this phase of the hearings, because very few witnesses know some of the very important details, we want to conduct it in a way that other witnesses don't know what witnesses are going to say, because otherwise they could work together and cook up alibis and tailor their testimony. And the fact that we've been able to keep it so close has protected in some respect against that.
Is what he's telling you reflected in those texts, or is there a lot of context that he's providing?
Well, I'm not going to go into that, but I think you can imagine that we have him before us because of his involvement and what came out through the Volcker text. But what I can tell you is that, again, the arrows continue to point in just one direction, and we have not seen a contradicting piece of evidence that contradicts the president's confession, the co-signing of that confession by Mick Mulvaney, and what the whistleblower complaint originally put forward.
We've heard from previous diplomats' testimony indicating they weren't aware that an investigation of Burisma, the company that Hunter Biden was on the board of, was essentially the same as an investigation of the Bidens, which, I mean, very clearly it is. Does hearing from Taylor cause any doubt on that assertion of others?
Brianna, Biden is Burisma, Burisma is Biden, Donald Trump is Rudy Giuliani, and Rudy Giuliani is Donald Trump. That needs to be made clear all the way through. And Donald Trump, in fact, actually, we don't really need to hear from the witnesses as to whether Burisma is Biden or not, because Donald Trump never even brought up Burisma in that call transcript. He mentioned
what I'm talking
Bidens.
About is what I'm talking about is the witnesses, because some of them, or at least one of them, have indicated that they didn't know that was really at the heart of it, which is difficult maybe to believe considering what Rudy Giuliani was doing publicly in the spring. Have you learned anything about that?
We have. I'm not going to go into it, but I think you have hit it on the head here. It's very hard to believe, considering the amount of public reporting and the fact that these are individuals who immerse themselves in what's going on in the countries that they're involved with, to miss that Rudy Giuliani was unmissable when it came to connecting Burisma to the Bidens. And so it's really hard to believe that.
How did lawmakers react in the room when Taylor laid out the chronology of how this all unfolded?
So I counted about 75 people in the room at one point. This is a very small room, a long table with the witness at the end of the table, a stenographer taking down what was said. But it was you could hear a pin drop literally as the ambassador has laid out in his opening statement. But again, I'm going to leave it to our chairman to characterize the testimony when the hearing concludes.
Do you get the sense from these diplomats that they wish they'd raised concerns before this came to a whistleblower bringing this all to light? Have they indicated whether they felt even that they had the ability to do that?
Well, again, I don't want to go into that, but we wish that they would have raised their concerns, and you can't help but read and listen to these witnesses.
Have you asked them about that? Why some of them didn't come forward sooner, considering we look at the text messages and we see that there was a lot of alarm?
I'll just stick to, Brianna, what my concerns are without going into the testimony. It is very concerning the number of people who did see lawlessness and wrongdoing from the president to Rudy Giuliani, and it took this whistleblower to blow the roof off of this scheme. It just makes you wonder what other schemes are going on with other countries, like perhaps Russia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, North Korea. And, we're focused on this, but the president certainly has priors with Russia, and there's certainly reason to wonder what's going on with these other countries and relationships.
House leadership was hoping to have maybe a vote on impeachment by Thanksgiving. Now we're learning that timeline could slip. This could go closer to the end of the year, maybe more. Who knows, as we wait to see what happens. How concerned are you about this sliding?
Well, we want to make sure the president gets a fair hearing, and even suspects who confess to crimes in America are entitled to a fair hearing. So he's going to get a fair process. He actually could make this go faster if they would cooperate and send people rather than refuse to have them come in. But we're going to give him a fair hearing and move expeditiously. And honestly, Brianna, I'm on the House leadership team. I'm on the Judiciary Committee. I'm on the Intelligence Committee. I have never heard an expressed timeline, just that we want to get it done fairly and we want to get it done right.
That is what our very good reporting by Mani Raji was showing us. I do want to say that.
And Mani's a very good reporter.
He is very good. So lastly, who else do you want to hear from?
Again, I'll leave that to our chairman. Again, we've heard from the president. In Brianna, in many cases, the most important facts, come out at the end of an investigation. Here, this investigation starts with this call record where the president, in his own words, asks the Ukrainians to investigate his political opponents. So, that may be, the bombshell here, but we're going to, again, give him a fair trial.